Welcome to our webinar about why do I need to nominate a guardian for our children. Thank you so much for joining us and watching this. My name is Brana Williams, and I'm here to let you know why it is that you need to nominate a guardian for your children and how you can responsibly do it. All right, what are we going to do and how are we going to go through this? The first thing we're going to do is talk about if you were actually at the workshop and you were in my office, you would sign a limited engagement. We're not in the workshop, so believe me, this is not a legal contract and not a legal engagement. We're just talking about things that you need to consider, okay? Why do you legally nominate guardians? Who are you thinking about? What do you do? We've had people that we know in here. I've had relatives that have not done it, and it can be a real fight, okay? My story, my husband and I have adopted 6 children. So right now, and Jim is 12 years older than I am. So the reality comes into if he and I were to pass in a car wreck together, who is going to take care of my children? They are 15, 14, 13, 12, and 10. They're young. There are things that I want to teach them, things that I want them to know. And a part of what I have put together and what I wanted to share and what we do at Indigo Family Law is share with our clients is the ability to do this for you and your family. We're going to talk about briefly how to legally name guardians, the process to determine who you need to think about, and then what you would do when you go to document your decision. All right. So let's jump into it. Who will care for your children? You know, most of us kind of think about, gosh, well, something happens to me, I guess it'll be my spouse, or maybe it'll be the person that I care about. Maybe it's my partner. Maybe it's my mom. Maybe it's my dad. Maybe I want my sister. But we don't know who that is, and you can't make that determination in just a few minutes. The key is that once you do decide about that, you need to get that in writing, because if you don't get it in writing, then the courts, the world, everybody else is not bound to make this happen. All right, so here's the deal. My children, as I just said, are underage. If my husband and I pass at the same time, and we don't name somebody, who's going to step in? I have a sister. She's older than I am, and she's a truck driver. My husband has no brothers and sisters, and yet he has 2 or 3 nephews who we could step in with. He has grown children from a prior marriage. It could get really ugly about who our children are going to be with. What we want to do is make sure it's lined up. And quite frankly, he and I have discussed differences. I kind of have one preference. He has another preference. So that's kind of where we are, and we are in the process of talking about it. Okay. Here's the difference. You are the judge, and you need to make that decision, not have it come down to a court. I've had it. I'm an attorney. I've got cases. I've had cases where people come in and they're fighting over both the parents are dead. Which set of grandparents is it going to be? We see that. We see that a lot in these times now. The thing is, sometimes what will happen is who in the court's eyes can be the worst person forever. As I've said, without naming names, which of course I'm not going to do, I have a friend that their sister would be the person that the court would pick because they're kind of sort of first in line. However, they don't speak. They don't talk. They don't interact. They have nothing to do with each other. They would have a duck literally roll over in their grave if that person is who the court would pick. But in the scheme of the way the world is set up, that's what the court system leans toward. So this is why this is extremely important for you to pick the person who you want it to be. Okay? All right. So I want to thank you for watching this, for being a part of it. You're taking the first step to thinking about and putting in writing what's already in your heart. It's a big step. All right, let's talk about a guardian. How do you decide? All right, first thing I want you to do is create your short list. Take a little piece of paper out, sit down. And this doesn't just happen like instantly, okay? You need to really think about it, because what'll happen is that as you go through it, you may change your mind. I want you to take a piece of paper out and write down 5 potential people to think about. Your parents, your siblings, maybe friends, an aunt, an uncle, cousins, godparents, nieces, nephews. Maybe it's your college roommates. I mean, anyone is better than, God forbid, they go into foster care. You know, that is a last choice for what we want. You know, as you sit down and you start talking about it, as I said, my husband and I aren't exactly on the same page about completely, but that's the person that I pick and the person that he picked would be better than my children going with strangers. That's for sure. All right. What do you do next? You start listing your top 3 parenting values. Put your list aside, list your parenting values. What do I mean by that? I mean, what is most important to you? Whatever it is, it's okay. You just need to be honest about it and put it down on the piece of paper. If you make this decision on what you think other people think it should be, it won't be right. So you got to make sure you list these 3 things based on your heart and what you think. It could be, how old is the person? What are they going to do? What are your morals? Let's talk about, are they married? Are they not married? Let's talk about the people whose parenting styles it might involve. Because when I say that, I want it to think about what's important to you. Here's some of the priorities that are important to me. I want the people who raise my children to actually love my children and not just say, oh my God, Brana picked me, let me do this. Okay, I really want there to be a relationship and a bond there. I want them to have very much the similar standards and morals that I have. And I know that they live their life kind of in the pattern that I do. You know, you just got to pick what matters to you. The one group I have, they're older, and I understand that they may not be here, but their age doesn't really matter to me. It matters to some other people. You've got to decide what you want. As you see on the screen, there's a whole list of priorities just to kind of think about. Okay, next step, match your short list with your parenting values. So what you got to do is you got to say, okay, I want to pick my mom and dad, but they're older. I don't necessarily think that somebody, quite frankly, and this is you thinking, and they won't know what you're thinking in your head, that somebody that old needs to be caring for my children. I just don't think they'll be here around because my children are younger and whatever, okay? Those are the things you got to do. You got to match them up so that they will be there. Even though they will love them just as I love them, they may not be around, and I don't want my children to have to go through a second loss if possible. As you go through it, what you're going to do is write down your first, second, and third choices from your first list compared to your parenting values. This will take a little bit. Think about it. You don't have to rush it because it's important, okay? Now, sometimes you may choose a couple. It's okay if you choose a couple, but then you've got to think about, do I like them as a couple together? Is it just the one of the couple that I really, really like and the other one is just the add-on? What happens if they get a divorce? What happens if something happens to one of them? How do you want to deal with it if you pick a couple? Because both of them may not survive to your children actually becoming of age. Walk around, think about it, but these are concepts you got to percolate on. Now, you've got it down, and what you got to do is at this point you transfer it to a form. Now, if we were having this workshop and you were in here, we would do this, but there's actually a form you can fill out that you put down, and we have it in Indigo Family Law. There are other attorneys who can probably help you do this, but you actually put down, this is who I want to nominate as a guardian for my children. Here's the first sheet. Here's the first list. Here's how I want it to be. Here's the second list of how I want it to be. So here's the thing I want you to think about, though. You're saying, gosh, we're talking about guardians, but that just must mean if I die. Well, no, it really doesn't. Especially in the world we live in today, we can get in a car wreck. People can be in the hospital. People can be in a coma. People can go, I've had several clients, they have to go live at the Shepherd Center for 9, 10, 12 months in Atlanta because they were so severely hurt. You want them to be able to do that. You don't want it to be a fight between other people because they're saying, oh, well, she's here and I don't want to bother her. Or maybe you're not conscious or capable of telling this. So understand, this isn't just about for when you actually pass or if something happens to you, okay? Now, the other part of naming a guardian comes into thinking about on the short term versus the long term. We live in Myrtle Beach. This is a lot of people moved down here and they've moved from up north. They've moved from other places. They're here, but their family is elsewhere. Okay. I just had a client come in and they were like, I want to name my sister, but my sister lives in Minneapolis. Okay. Well, if something happened and they get in a car wreck today, how quick is it going to be for her sister to get here? I don't think she's going to be here within an hour or so. And somebody has to take care of your children in the interim until the long-term person can get here if they're not the same person. So that's what you want to do. You want to put it in there. You want to talk about, who it's going to be, who's the short-term person going to be. Maybe it's your babysitter. Maybe it's your next door neighbor. Maybe it's somebody that you trust who you know is right here. And when something happens to you, they can go get your children and take care of them until the long-term person becomes available. What happens, maybe we've not thought about it, but I want to make sure we all think about it, is that what happens when I say short term? You're in an accident. The police will go to your house. They've got to know you've got children. Maybe they go to school. Maybe they, both of you are hurt. They don't know where to go. You need to make sure that your cell phone number is available, your address is available, the information, the contact information. The other day I had to go to Charlotte and I was driving up at night and I had my daughter in the car with me. And I thought about that if we got in a car wreck, because the way the map took us was through Podunk back nowhere. Okay. And I thought, what, if I wreck and go off, I don't have a single thing on me because I was in my husband's car about, who to call. Would they know to call my husband? Would they know who to call about this, that this is the name, this is my cell phone, who's the contact? So we also keep a little card in our wallet, and that's one of the things we at Indigo Law do, is to make sure everybody has that. So let's say that the police show up at your house and your babysitter doesn't know what to do. Okay. One of the things you have got to do is you've got to have something in your house, like maybe on your refrigerator in some special place, that the police know where to go, what to look for, or at least it's obvious so they can find your directions. Okay. If you don't have these documents, by law, your children can be taken into child custody protective services and placed with foster care. My husband's retired police. I asked him. He said that realistically, they try to find somebody, but if they can't, they have to do that. They're not going to stay with the police officer. And we don't want that to happen to our children. All right. As I said, short-term guardian. Think about people who live within 20 minutes. People your children know, love, and trust. You don't want it just to be somebody you know. It needs to be somebody your children know, because if something happens to you, obviously they're upset. Somebody who can be there right away, not take forever. And that's the person as well. Not only do you have it at your house, but and whoever has care of your children, the person who you're naming as your short-term guardian, we need to give them a copy of it so that they know that they will do that. You've talked to them and they've said, yeah, I'll be glad to help. Okay. If you're out, you always let the babysitter know who to call, where to go. And like I said, we do an ID card that you actually keep on you if something happens. Okay. What do we call this? We call it a kids protection plan. That's what we do here at Indigo Family Law. I think this is one of the unique things about our firm that makes us unique. Okay. but people make a lot of mistakes in doing this, as I've helped people do it and thought about when I was doing my own and kind of going through all this the first time. So what are the 6 common mistakes? We'll discuss them. 1, people choose couples, not individuals. Okay. Well, if something happens to one part of the couple and your documents don't distinguish what happens with one or the other, then they're both out. That doesn't work. Okay. People don't name enough alternatives. God forbid if you name somebody and something has happened to them, or they've now moved, or they're out of the country, or they're on vacation or something like that and they can't be here, then there's nobody to fall back on. You're back to that other first plan, the same as not having one. Sometimes I've noticed people don't consider financial resources when naming guardians. And it's not that you're going to provide what you provide for your children. But the people who take on your children will have a responsibility, and obviously it will cost them. And you need to make sure they're comfortable with that and you're comfortable with where they are and how that is set up. Lots of times when people come in and they've done their wills, they've named their guardians, they named their stuff in their wills, they've never thought about the short term. And like I said, it's extremely important around here where we live, if you've relocated or if you're here, because lots of people come and it's just them. And especially in today's society, the family is off. Okay. So who's going to take care of your children until those people can get here to care for them? Number 6. And I think this one is a biggie that we really don't think about, is we don't think about who we don't want to take care of our children, but they don't necessarily know it. And they're going to think they're the ones we would pick. Okay. So part of the other thing that we include in this is who we want to exclude. And then we list the reasons why. Because when you go to court about something and if it becomes contested and a judge has to hear it, you want the judge to hear your thoughts and your reasons. The judge, if it comes to that, the judge would ultimately make a decision. But you would hope that and want the judge to hear what you had to say. Okay? You've got to think about when you do your guardian stuff, what happens to your assets? Are they just going to go? Are your children going to get them when they turn 18? Are they all going to get it when they turn 18? What's going to happen? You know, I guess, well, lots of people don't know, but what happens if you don't have a will, if you don't have it lined up? Everything goes to probate. If you're married with no children, your spouse gets 100%. If you're married with children, your spouse gets 50%, your children get the other 50%, whether it's 1 or 10, they get 50%, okay? And then, because you go to probate, you have to do filing fees. You have to pay all the expenses that go with it. But I think the biggest concern of all is that your children get their portion when they turn 18. And I think I can safely say there are not many of us at all that want our children to, that we weren't responsible at 18 to be able to handle anything and handle our lives. I don't want my children to get that either. And that's something that we truly have to consider. All right. Let's talk about the other part that I want to point out is that part of what you consider the other thing about probate is there are 2 things. One is, like I said, your children get it when they turn 18. Number 2, you pay fees. There are fees associated with probate. But one of the things I think is the biggest is that your information is out there. And people know this child's going to inherit this, or you are worth this, and all your business is in the street. So we can hide it. Okay. And I don't mean hide it from the government. I mean hide it from prying eyes for people that don't need to know. And I think that's just super, super important. And I don't think that when we plan on these things that people realize the expense that is associated with that money that would go to your children that isn't going to go to your children because it has to pay fees. Okay. So that's why we at Indigo Family Law really think it's very important for you to come in and plan on who your guardian needs to be, plan on what needs to happen for your children, plan it so that when something catastrophic happens to you, your children are already going through enough. Your family's going through enough. They don't need the extra worry of, oh my God, what are we going to do about this? We're fighting over who's going to raise those lovely children. They're my grandchildren. They should be with me. No, they're my grandchildren. They should be with me. We don't need that. It's already bad enough as it is. And so we think that the best, most loving thing that you can do is to plan for your children and name guardians for them. Name guardians in the short term, name guardians in the long term. Set it up so that your children are taken care of. If you had come in, and we do workshops periodically at the firm, and for the folks, just say, as a teaser, when you come in, we actually give out gift certificates and we do discounts and those things for the folks who actually come to the workshop. I can't do that on a video that's put out here, but if you call and tell me you watched the video, I bet there's a discount waiting for you. All right, thanks for watching today, and good luck and take care.